I was born with my given name of Presentacion Vasquez, and it was very difficult my early years of school uh, to to have a name such as Presentacion. So I went as junior for the first few years. In junior high, I changed my name to Pete. This is following the footsteps of my father, who was also Pete. And since then, I've had all of my documentation with my name Pete Vasquez. So I've never really legally changed it, which has now been a major problem in my life. But but that's the way life is sometimes. And I am the ninth child of the Vasquez clan, and I happen to be the oldest of what I like to call the second generation of my family. I was the oldest that was still going to junior high, as a matter of fact. My dad was in California. He had moved to California because of his work. And it was my mother, myself, and my siblings, which were all younger than me. I take that back. Becky Rebecca Vasquez was also living with us. However, she was in high school, and she had decided to stay in San Antonio until her high school finished. The real reason was that she had a boyfriend in high school that she didn't want to leave. And she also didn't drive at the time. I was the primary driver. I got my license when I was 14 and a half. And less than a year later, we decided to move to San Jose, California. So we decided to go with another family, and it was like a caravan, and it was the Monzon family, who were from the church, and we followed them all the way to California. First day we slept in El Paso, and from there it took us another couple of days to eventually get to San Jose. That's where my dad and Caleb were living. And again, Becky stayed back in San Antonio. So at that point in time, I graduated from high school, attended college, and I married at the early age of 19. My first wife was Jan Marie Fowler, and we had one child, Peter, born in 1972. I would like to say that one thing you probably don't know about me is I think part of it was due to the fact of me being in the service, and my brothers also being in the service, and one of them being killed in the Vietnam War. I'm actually a very patriotic person. I love my country. I've served my country. This 4th of July, I had 3 flags in front of my tree in the front. That's besides the large flag that I have on my garage. But the 3 flags represent my 3 brothers that have passed away, and all 3 of them have been veterans. 2 of them Marine Corps, and the other Air Force. I've got a brother that was in the Army, and then of course I was in the Navy. So I I'm very lucky, and I feel very blessed that I live in this country. I believe it's the greatest country in the world. I've been in other countries, and trust me, it's not fun living in other countries, and it really hurts me to see the freedom that we have. It's just not. It's really not. People don't really know what that freedom has cost this country, and it's just my feeling that for whatever it's worth, that we should respect the flag in this country and not abuse the privileges that we have. Having said that, I'm also somewhat of a workaholic. I'm 70 years old, and believe it or not, I'm still working. My belief is that if I were to just simply retire, I think I would just dwindle away like a dried up flower and die. But that's just my perspective in life. I just have to be busy, and that was also reinforced the last 6 months. I lost my wife. She passed away, and for a couple of months, it was very difficult for me to understand what had happened. My life completely changed, and it took me a while to understand that I needed to have a reason for living. So I decided to get really busy with my work. I'm spending more time with my children, so that's what I'm doing right now. And I also understand that some people may disagree on politics, but again, that's also the freedom that we have. We have the freedom to make a decision on our own, and if we don't like the direction the country is moving, we can certainly make some efforts to change it. Alma, do you have anything else that you might want to know? Oh yes. As when I was growing up, I've always enjoyed life to its fullest. I've had several motorcycles, and earlier, before the motorcycles, I had a dune buggy. It started out with a fiberglass. It was mostly show, but I purchased some wheels to go in the sand, which were called paddle wheels. We had a lot of fun. I usually took nephews and nieces on rides in the sand. We had a lot of fun. And I guess that brings me to later on, we got pretty serious with the dune buggy. We joined a club, and we went off-roading to places like the desert, Mojave Desert, Red Rock Canyon, Tahoe. It was mostly off the road, and we had tons of fun. We started out having a tent overnight, and that went to a van that had the top cover. From that van, we went to a motorhome, and it got to the point where Yeah, just before we went, yeah, just about that time, we were spending a lot of time going off the road. And at one of these trips, we were coming down a switchback, which was a somewhat off the road, treacherous switchback, which was very dangerous coming down. And I was driving my dune buggy. The rear wheels had adapters so that it could accommodate the larger wheels that I had. And during this drive down this switchback, one of the adapters broke, which catapulted the dune buggy end over towards the front. Fortunately, the dune buggy was built so that the rear fenders were pretty high, and then they went down to where the front seat. So with the where the front seats were, you could easily just jump into the front seat. So if you can imagine when this dune buggy went upside down, did have a roll bar, and it did have that high fender. And Jan, my wife, my first wife at the time, was holding my son Peter. That was a bad decision on all our parts. And when it went over, Jan automatically raised her hands to brace the fall. Well, she did that. PJ, my son, fell, and as the dune buggy slid across the road up to the edge of the road, he was in the middle of that curve, so he fell. The dune buggy went right over him without really touching him. But that was such a traumatic event for us, we were, again, very blessed that nobody was hurt. Dune buggy was damaged beyond repair, and I decided to build another dune buggy that would be a little safer. It was a tubular construction, steel, which thinking back, may not have been the right decision, but either way. We built this dune buggy. It's much stronger. It had a roll cage, and it had a small back seat for my son with seat belts, and the front seats were also the aircraft type seat belts. Basically, it was set up for racing, but we felt much safer on this, and we did use it for another few years. But Peter will never forgive us for that little accident. I was also, at that point in time in my life, I was also going to school. So I was also in the reserves. So I was spending a lot of time away from home because of my school, my work, my reserves, and one thing led to another, there was a situation where Jan pretty much gave me the decision of either removing myself from some of these activities, or that she would be gone. And at any rate, bottom line, I did get divorced. And couple of years later, I did marry Marcia Neal, and I've been married to Marcia Neal for 33 years before she passed away. I have many fond memories of Marcia with my family, and I very much miss her. And right now, I'm still somewhat in the middle of this transition that I'm going through. Um, it's a day from day to day situation, but I think I'm doing well. I'm doing much better than the first couple of months. She was buried. No, she was. Well, she was cremated. However, we do have I'm not sure what you call it. It was the National Veterans Burial location in Dixon, and it's above ground to where you have some sort of a looks like a safe deposit box, and that's where I will also be taken to once I die. My wishes are to also be cremated and be put near the ashes of my wife. So that I will end my presentation unless.
Can you tell us about your patriotic house you used to have?
Which?
The patriotic house you used to have earlier?
Oh yes, yes. It was one of the first houses we had. It was in San Jose, South San Jose, and the theme was red, white, and blue. And every it was not only was it red, white, and blue, but there were a lot of antiques. So it was a nice little home.
American.
Yeah, the American style, but that was a fun house. Well, hopefully we'll have a chance to do this again, and until the next time, I thank you, and God bless America.